I was super pissed, but I could also slay a cheeseburger. Werewolf romance with comedy cheeseburgers, anger, and love under the moon. Chapter 1. Katrina Lockwood wasn't a woman who got angry often, but when she did, it came with side effects that were both humiliating and oddly culinary. Some people threw things when they were mad. Some screamed. Katrina. She craved cheeseburgers like her blood sugar had plummeted straight into hell. Which is how she found herself stomping out of her tiny apartment on a sticky summer night, still in pajama shorts and an old band tee, muttering to herself about her boss who had once again forgotten to put her name on the schedule for extra shifts. She needed money. She needed rent. What she didn't need was a patronizing pat on the back and a reminder that team players don't complain. Her stomach growled loud enough to startle a passing cat. "Don't look at me like that," she grumbled. "I know it's my fourth craving this week, but I swear if I don't get a double bacon cheeseburger with extra pickles in the next 5 minutes, someone's gonna die." It wasn't even an exaggeration. The longer her anger simmered, the sharper the hunger stabbed at her insides. By the time she reached the neon sign of Lou's Diner, she was practically vibrating. Sliding into a cracked red vinyl booth, Katrina ordered before the waitress even got her pad out. 2 bacon cheeseburgers, extra cheese, fries, onion rings, chocolate shake. And, her stomach growled again, a side of chili cheese fries too. The waitress raised an eyebrow. Katrina scowled. "Don't judge me, Tammy." The food came fast, greasy and glorious. Katrina tore into the first burger like she hadn't eaten in a week. By the second, her vision blurred at the edges. Her hands trembled. Heat pooled beneath her skin in a way that was more than just diner sweat. "What the hell?" she whispered. Her spine arched, cracking like knuckles. Her teeth ached, then sharpened. Her nails elongated into claws, scratching grooves into the Formica tabletop. The air smelled wrong, too strong, too vivid. Grease and meat and blood and fur. Katrina shoved the half-eaten burger away just as the full moon rose, fat and unflinching, through the diner window. The hunger flipped. It wasn't about cheeseburgers anymore. It was about meat. Warm, raw, red. Her skin split. Her scream choked into a snarl. Tammy dropped a plate. Somewhere, someone shouted. But Katrina barely heard it over the roar of her own transformation. When it was done, when the pain melted into a horrifying new awareness of muscle and fur, Katrina found herself crouched on the diner floor, claws dug into tile, teeth bared at the terrified night cook. And then, another scent. A shadow loomed in the doorway. A tall man, calm where everyone else had bolted, his eyes burning gold in the flickering fluorescent lights. "Easy," he said, voice low, steady. Not scared. Not shocked. Like he'd seen this 1,000 times. "First shifts are a bitch. But you're gonna be okay." Her wolf wanted to lunge. Her human brain wanted to scream. Both froze when he stepped closer, and she realized what he was. Not human. A wolf, just like her. Chapter 2. He smelled like pine and rain and something warm that made the panic stop tumbling quite so hard. He lifted his hands, palms open. "Name's Jax. You're safe. Eyes on me, not on the screaming onion rings." The onion rings were, in fact, screaming. No, that was Tammy, who had apparently regained enough courage to shriek from behind the milkshake machine. Katrina's ear twitched toward the sound. Jax clicked his tongue softly. "Hey. Hey. We're going outside. Fresh air. You'll breathe. You'll listen. You won't eat anyone's forearm, cool?" Her wolf bristled at being commanded, then, traitorously, eased under the cadence of his voice. Jax shrugged out of a flannel overshirt, stepped close enough to drape it over her shoulders like a cape, and guided her toward the back door. The world was a riot of scent, every molecule a neon sign, fryer oil, bleach, the metallic tang of fear, the sweet ache of chocolate shake on tile. Outside, The parking lot was moon-washed and wide. "Shift your weight back," Jax murmured. "Good. Feel your paws, yeah, those. You're not going to fall. Your body knows what to do." She tried a step. Her claws skittered. Another step. By the third, Katrina was moving, ungainly but mobile, like a baby deer who ate a hardware store. Jax walked beside her, ridiculously composed, big and solid as a doorframe. The night hit her like a cathedral. Crickets roared. A far-off train stitched the horizon. Wind combed the fur along her spine, and with it came 1,000 scents she'd never noticed as a human: raccoon highway gossip, racier notes of coyote, the old stone chill of the river, and beneath it all, Jax. Steady. Present. He led her to a strip of scrub pines behind the dumpsters. "Okay," he said, crouching so his eyes met hers. "Listen up. First rule, breathe. Second rule, do not sprint into traffic. Third rule, if you feel like eating someone, eat this." He produced a paper bag from his back pocket like a magician and untwisted it. Raw steaks. 2 of them. The scent made her world tilt. "Yeah," Jax said, "rye. I figured the cheeseburger thing was a clue. Lady, you were demolishing Lou's menu like a competitive eater with a vendetta." Katrina huffed, a sound that was disturbingly close to a laugh. She lunged for the steak and tore into it, salt and blood flooding her mouth, the hunger grabbing, growling, then unwinding just enough for her thoughts to line up. She ate the second one more slowly. When she lifted her head, Jax was watching her with an openness that made heat prickle beneath her fur. "Better?" She nodded. The word lived somewhere she couldn't reach. "Right. You're in what we call a first moon freakout. It's normal. You're not crazy, you're not cursed. Well, okay, lycanthropy is technically a curse in the original legal sense, but that's a long story best told over waffles." She tilted her head. "Waffles. Yeah, you're definitely a food-motivated wolf." He grinned, quick and bright. "Same." A siren wah-wah'd in the distance. Jax's smile faded. "We should move. Cops plus claws equals paperwork." He stood, rolled his shoulders, and the air around him changed. Bones sighed, proportions blurred. In a beat he was fur and muscle, a massive gray wolf with darker streaks along his back and those same molten gold eyes. He nudged her shoulder with his muzzle. "Come on." They loped toward the trees. Running on 4 legs should have felt alien, but it was like finding a groove in a song she'd always loved without knowing its name. The forest took them in, the town falling away, the moon a silver drum they matched stride for stride. For a while there was only motion, branch, earth, heartbeat, Jax ahead, checking back, her learning the language of speed. They stopped at a ridge above the river. The water wrote light on the stones. Jax sat, Katrina mirrored him. He touched his muzzle to her shoulder, a question. She didn't flinch this time. When he shifted back, he did it slow, so she could watch the trick of it, the way breath led bone and bone led skin. He knelt in the pine needles, not bothering to cover the fact that he was bare beneath the flannel he'd given her. He didn't seem embarrassed, he seemed honest. "Hi," he said softly, smiling like they'd just met at a farmer's market instead of a supernatural incident. "I'm Jax Calder. Pack liaison, occasional bouncer, and full-time collector of newly sprouted wolves from unfortunate food establishments." Katrina tried to speak. A sound came out, half wolf, half woman, so she settled for flattening her ears and then lifting them, hoping the meaning translated to, "Hi, hello, what, how, why, waffles." Jax's eyes crinkled. "We'll get you back to human. I'll talk you through it. But first, I need to ask, Katrina Lockwood, do you trust me?" Her name in his mouth made something deep in her chest settle, as if he'd found the right shelf to put her on. Trust was a lot to ask when she'd just grown fangs in a diner. Yet the alternative was going back alone, claws clicking on tile while the world burned at the edges. She looked at the river. The moon. Then back at Jax, who waited without pushing, the way you hold out a hand to a skittish dog and let them decide. Katrina nodded. Good. He exhaled, relieved. Then breathe with me. Find the place where hunger becomes heat, and heat becomes you. We'll bring you home. Chapter 3. Jax's voice was a tether in the dark. Breathe in. Deeper. There you go. Now again. Don't fight the fur, invite the bones back. Katrina closed her eyes. Her lungs stretched wider than she remembered. Air smelled like bark and iron. She dug her claws into the earth until she felt its cool heartbeat. In. Out. In. Out. Find your center, Jax murmured. It's still you. You're still Katrina. You're just running a bigger operating system right now. His words painted a rhythm she could follow. She imagined herself on a beach, her favorite childhood place, waves rolling in and out. She imagined the sound of the fryer at Lou's, the hiss, the sizzle. And then, beneath it, a steady pulse. Her own. Her bones ached again. Fur prickled and retreated. She gasped. The world tilted, shrank, sharpened differently. When she opened her eyes, she was kneeling naked on pine needles, shivering, human again. Jax's flannel was still on her shoulders. He must have thrown it back around her mid-shift. His gaze flicked away politely as she wrapped it tight. Nice, he said quietly. First shift back can take hours. You did it in 15 minutes. That's impressive. Katrina stared at her hands, still trembling. I don't, her voice cracked. I just grew fangs in a diner, Jax. I just ate raw steak like a dog. This is not impressive. This is insane. It's both, he said. Insanely impressive. She barked a laugh, short and shaky. What's happening to me? He sat back on his heels, eyes thoughtful. You're a werewolf. I mean, yeah, but why? Someone in your bloodline carried it. Could be dormant for generations. Usually stress triggers it. Rage, trauma, that kind of thing. He tilted his head. Your file said you had episodes? Katrina glared. I do not have episodes. I have bad bosses. Right. And a hell of an appetite when you're angry. She pressed her palms to her face. So this is me now. Cheeseburgers and full moons. That's the gist. His voice softened. But it's not a curse the way you think. It's a community. A second skin. It's freedom, once you learn how to steer it. Her hands fell to her lap. Freedom? You'll see. He pushed to his feet, offered a hand. Come on. There's a place up the ridge. Safe. Coffee. You look like you need coffee. I look like I need therapy, she muttered, but she took his hand anyway. His palm was warm, steady, calloused. They hiked under the moonlight. Katrina's legs felt strange, stronger, like they remembered how to run differently now. Jax led her along a deer path until they reached a low cabin tucked between pines. Smoke curled from a metal chimney. Inside, it smelled of cedar and cinnamon. Jax flicked on a lamp, poured her a mug from a thermos. Drink. Sugar's on the counter. She gulped it like holy water. The caffeine and sweetness made the world snap into clearer focus. The cabin was rustic but neat, maps on the walls, shelves of worn paperbacks, a battered leather couch. Is this your house? She asked. My crash pad, he said. It's where we bring newbies until they get their bearings. Her brows rose. We? Jax hesitated, then smiled like he'd been caught. The pack. Officially, Blackwood Ridge Pack. Unofficially, the Wolves of I Hate Human Rules Club. Katrina snorted. Sounds like a support group. In a way. He sat opposite her. We've all been where you are, Katrina. Scared, starving, claws out. We help each other learn. She eyed him over the rim of the mug. And you're just the welcoming committee? His smile turned crooked. I'm a lot of things. But yeah. I make sure nobody eats their coworkers on their first shift. She laughed despite herself. It came out rusty but real. The sound seemed to please him. Tomorrow, he said, I'll take you to meet the others. We'll explain everything. Training, territory, control. Tonight, you rest. Katrina leaned back against the couch, clutching the mug. I should be terrified. You are. Yeah. And you're handling it. Barely. He shrugged. Barely counts. Silence stretched, but it was a warm silence. The fire popped. Outside, an owl called. Katrina watched Jax watching her, not like a specimen, but like someone trying to make sure she stayed tethered to herself. Jax, she said softly. Yeah? I really could still slay a cheeseburger. His laugh rolled through the cabin like thunder softened by distance. Tomorrow morning, he said, I'll make you one. Real meat, not diner mystery. For the first time that night, Katrina felt the tremor inside her ease. It didn't erase the chaos, but it carved out a small space of safety within it. She tucked her feet under the flannel and let herself exhale. Jax poured himself a cup, leaned back, and studied her with those molten eyes. Get some sleep, he said. Moon's still high, but we've got time. You're not alone anymore. The words landed somewhere deep, like a stake driven through her fear but in a good way, anchoring her. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, packs, training, maybe waffles, but she knew one thing, she wasn't going back to the diner life she'd had before. And she wasn't going back alone. Chapter 4. Sleep didn't come easily. Katrina dozed on the couch, tossing in and out of dreams full of growls and grease-stained diner napkins, but every time she startled awake, Jax was still there. Sometimes reading a book, sometimes dozing in a chair, sometimes scribbling notes on a scrap of paper. He never left. By dawn, she was a tangle of nerves wrapped in borrowed flannel, hair sticking out like she'd fought a blender. Jax handed her coffee without a word. She drank it in grateful silence. So, she croaked, was last night real? Jax smirked. Unless we both had the same hallucination involving you demolishing raw ribeye, yeah, it was real. Her stomach flipped. Oh God. I did that. Don't stress. Happens to all of us. My first shift. I ate 3 rotisserie chickens in a grocery store parking lot. Bones and all. Pack still calls me Jax the rotisserie. Katrina laughed before she could stop herself, then slapped a hand over her mouth. Sorry. That's embarrassing. It is. But you'll get a nickname too, trust me. Cheeseburger Queen has a nice ring. She groaned into her mug. Kill me now. Not how this works. His grin softened. You're alive, Katrina. That's the point. By mid-morning, he coaxed her out of the cabin. Her body felt different. Stronger. Her senses sharp enough that she could tell which neighbor brewed hazelnut coffee by the wind shift. When a deer bounded across the ridge, her pulse spiked in recognition, prey. She stumbled, horrified by the thrill. Jack steadied her. Instincts aren't morality. You still get to choose who you are. They reached a clearing where 3 other figures waited. Wolves, not men. One sleek black, one sandy, one mottled brown. They lounged in the sun like oversized dogs until Katrina arrived. Then they rose, solemn, their eyes too knowing. Packmates, Jack said, voice low, reverent. This is Katrina Lockwood. She shifted last night. The black wolf padded forward, sniffed her hand. Katrina froze. The wolf snorted, bumped its head against her arm, and shifted in a shimmer of moonlight. A woman stood in its place, tall, with skin the color of warm bronze and eyes that glittered like onyx. She wore a tank top and jeans, barefoot in the grass. "I'm Mara," she said. "Beta. Welcome, Cheeseburger Queen." Katrina buried her face in her hands. "It's already stuck." "Oh, definitely," Jack said, laughter in his voice. The others shifted too, one after the other. A wiry man named Theo, who kept fiddling with a pocket knife, and a quiet, broad-shouldered woman called Lynn who nodded once in greeting. They circled her with curiosity but no malice. Mara touched Katrina's shoulder gently. "You'll learn. We'll teach you." "I don't know if I can," Katrina admitted, words trembling. "You can," Mara said firmly. "Because you're pack now. And we don't let our own drown." Something inside Katrina broke open at those words. Some old ache she hadn't known was still raw. She blinked hard, swallowed, and whispered, "Okay." Jax caught her gaze across the circle. He didn't speak, but the warmth in his eyes was louder than anything. For the first time since she'd shifted, Katrina thought maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of her life. It was the start of something new. Something wild. Something hungry. And something she wasn't going to face alone. Chapter 5. Training began with humiliation, which apparently was tradition. "Shift," Mara ordered, standing with her arms crossed while the others lounged nearby. Katrina squinted at her. "Shift? You mean, like, just decide to sprout fur?" "Yes. That's not a button I can press." Theo smirked, tossing his pocket knife end over end. "You'll get it. Usually takes a trigger. Anger, hunger, fear. Fantastic. My whole personality," Katrina muttered. Jax leaned against a tree, arms folded, clearly trying not to laugh. "Close your eyes. Remember last night. Remember how it felt in your bones." Katrina closed her eyes, inhaled. At first, nothing. Then, a flicker, heat, pressure, that dangerous buzz crawling beneath her skin. She focused, coaxed it higher. Pain lanced her spine, but she grit her teeth. And then, fur. Claws. The earth beneath her paws. Her eyes shot open. She was wolf again. "See?" Jack said, grinning. "Natural." She immediately sneezed, stumbled, and face-planted into the dirt. Mara barked a laugh. "Grace will come later," Mara said. "Right now, run." They ran through the forest, Katrina tripping over roots, overshooting turns, careening into a bush that smelled strongly of skunk. Theo howled with laughter while Lynn patiently nudged her back onto the trail. But despite the scrapes, the embarrassment, something inside Katrina unfurled. Running wasn't exercise anymore. It was liberation. Every stride was a song her body had known forever, only now she could hear the lyrics. When they finally collapsed in a meadow, fur damp with sweat, Katrina panted and thought, this is what it means to be alive. That night, the pack gathered at the cabin. A fire burned low in the pit outside. Theo roasted marshmallows with claws extended like skewers. Mara told a story about her first shift in the middle of a college lecture hall. Lynn sat silent, smiling faintly at the flames. Katrina hugged her knees, listening. For once, she didn't feel like an outsider watching from the edge. She was inside the circle. Jack slid down beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. "Not so bad, huh?" She glanced at him. His profile was sharp in the firelight, but his expression soft, almost gentle. "I still don't get it," she admitted. "Why me? Why now? Why cheeseburgers?" He chuckled. "The moon chooses. Hunger was just the fuse. And as for cheeseburgers, hey, wolves like beef. You just had a dramatic way of showing it." She nudged him with her elbow. "You're enjoying this." "A little." He turned to meet her gaze fully, golden eyes reflecting the fire. But I'm also proud. You didn't break. You ran with us today. Her throat tightened unexpectedly. She looked away, back at the flames. Thanks. For not letting me, lose it completely. Jax's hand brushed hers, not quite holding, but close enough that warmth sparked between them. Anytime, Katrina. The night stretched soft around them. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't just angry or hungry. She was something else entirely. Something that scared her more than fangs and claws combined. Hope. Chapter 6. The next week blurred into a crash course in wolf life. Katrina learned how to shift without shredding her clothes, though she ruined 3 pairs of jeans first, how to stop herself from lunging at squirrels mid-sentence, and how to listen with ears that picked up secrets the world never meant to share. She also learned that Jax was everywhere. When Mara drilled her on combat stances, Jax was there, adjusting her elbows with a steady touch. When Theo baited her into sparring, Jax called out encouragement every time she managed to pin him. When she collapsed after a grueling night run, Jax was the one handing her water and smirking, "Not bad, cheeseburger queen." And every time their eyes locked, Katrina felt a flicker of heat that had nothing to do with shifting. One evening, after training, she slipped away to the ridge above the river. The pack's voices drifted faintly from below, laughter and fire crackles, but she needed air. She needed to think. The moon rose fat and golden, painting the river in liquid light. Katrina hugged her knees, chewing her lip. "You're hiding," Jax said behind her. She jumped. "Do you practice sneaking up on people?" "Wolves don't sneak. We move." He sat beside her, close enough that she felt the warmth of him. "What's eating you?" "Besides cheeseburgers," she quipped, but her voice cracked. He waited. Katrina exhaled. "I don't know if I can do this. I barely make rent. I can't just join a pack and run around howling at the moon like it's normal." "What about my job? My life?" Jax tilted his head. "Do you really want that job back? The one that made you furious enough to sprout claws?" She hesitated. The diner, the crappy tips, the way her boss treated her like wallpaper. No, she didn't miss it. Not one bit. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered. "That's the point," Jax said. "You get to decide now. Wolf or woman, or both. You're not stuck." She turned to him, heart pounding. "And you? Who decided who you were for you?" His eyes darkened, shadows threading the gold. "Once? My father. He wanted me to be his soldier. His heir. But I walked away. Now I'm just Jax. The guy who collects strays and burns pancakes." Her lips twitched. "You burn pancakes?" "Every damn time." He grinned, then sobered. "But I'm still figuring it out too, Katrina. We all are. You don't have to have answers tonight." The silence that followed was heavy, but not uncomfortable. The night wrapped them in pine and river song. Her pulse beat in her ears, too loud. His gaze lingered, too steady. And then, like it was the most natural thing in the world, he leaned closer. Not a command. Not a question. Just a presence waiting to see if she'd meet him halfway. Katrina's breath caught. She could still taste salt and fire and the memory of raw steak on her tongue. She could still hear her own snarl in the diner. She should have been terrified. Instead, she leaned in. Their lips brushed, warm, hesitant, sparking with a wildness neither of them could tame. For the first time since her world had cracked open, Katrina wasn't angry. She wasn't starving. She was just alive. Chapter 7. The kiss was brief, almost accidental in its gentleness, but it left Katrina's entire body buzzing. She pulled back first, startled by the heat coursing through her veins. Her wolf stretched inside her, prowling with interest. Jax cleared his throat, gaze flicking to the moonlit river. Sorry. That was, probably too fast. Katrina blinked. Too fast. I literally turned into a wolf last week. My life is nothing but too fast right now. That earned a low chuckle. He rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly sheepish in a way she hadn't seen before. Fair enough. The quiet that followed wasn't awkward, but thick, alive with unsaid things. Katrina wrapped her arms around her knees again, trying to anchor herself. The truth was, she wanted to kiss him again. She wanted to know what it would feel like if she leaned all the way in, if she let herself fall into him instead of pulling back. Instead, she muttered, "This is ridiculous." What is? All of it. Wolves. Packs. Cheeseburger nicknames. And now, you. His eyebrows rose. Me? You keep being nice. And helpful. And, she flung a hand toward him, wolfishly handsome, which is not fair to my brain when it's already fried. Jax laughed, a real laugh, warm and surprised. Wolfishly handsome? I'll take it. Katrina groaned, burying her face in her arms. You're impossible. Yeah, he said softly. But so are you. The way he said it, not as an insult but like it was some kind of compliment, made her heart skip. Down below, the pack howled suddenly, a chorus rising against the moon. Mara's clear, commanding note. Theo's sharp edge. Lynn's low harmony. The sound trembled through Katrina's chest like a second heartbeat. Without thinking, she tilted her head back and let a howl rip from her throat. It was raw, unpolished, but it carried. The forest answered her. The pack answered her. And Jax joined in, his voice threading through hers until the night seemed to vibrate with something bigger than both of them. When the howl faded, Katrina's cheeks were wet. She hadn't realized she was crying. Jax reached over and wiped a thumb gently beneath her eye. First howl's always like that, he murmured. It felt, she struggled for words. Like coming home to a place I didn't know existed. His gaze softened, burning gold. Exactly. They sat there until the fire below dimmed, until the pack drifted back toward the cabin, until the moon dipped lower in the sky. Eventually, Jax stood, offering her a hand. Come on, he said. You need sleep. She took his hand, steady and warm. For the first time since her shift, Katrina didn't feel like she was being dragged into something terrifying. She felt like she was stepping into something she was meant to find all along. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the only one. Chapter 8. Morning light spilled across the cabin, sharp and unforgiving, but Katrina felt strangely clear-headed. Her body ached in that deep, satisfying way after a workout, and her senses still hummed with the memory of the howl. Mara was already at the table, sipping coffee and flipping through a notebook. Theo leaned against the counter, chewing on cold bacon like it was jerky. Lynn was outside splitting wood with terrifying precision. Sleep well? Mara asked without looking up. Katrina poured herself coffee. Define well. I dreamed I was chasing a UPS truck and then woke up with fur in my mouth. Theo grinned. Classic. Jax appeared from the back hallway, hair still damp from a shower, wearing a clean t-shirt that stretched a little too nicely over his shoulders. Don't worry. Dream wolfing doesn't count. You stayed human all night. Katrina tried not to choke on her coffee. Stayed human all night sounded suspiciously like he'd been keeping track. Today, Mara said briskly, snapping the notebook shut, we work on control. You need to learn how to shift fast and shift back faster. That way, when you're cornered or stressed, you're the one in charge, not the moon, not the hunger. Katrina groaned. So basically, advanced yoga but with claws. Exactly. Mara smirked. And just as sweaty. Training was brutal. Shift, shift back, shift again. Every bone in her body seemed to rebel. She lost count of how many times she fell on her face. At one point she shifted mid-roll and ended up half wolf, half human, flopping in the dirt like a badly animated video game glitch. Theo laughed so hard he nearly swallowed his knife. But Jax crouched beside her every time, calm and steady. Breathe through it. Don't fight your body, guide it. His hand brushed hers once, grounding her. That tiny contact steadied something deep inside, and the next shift clicked cleaner than any before. By the end of the afternoon, Katrina could almost, manage it without screaming. She collapsed against a log, sweaty, dirty, exhausted. Jax dropped beside her, passing her a water bottle. Not bad for day 2. She scowled. I look like I'd been run over by a lawnmower. He grinned. A very powerful lawnmower. With fangs. Despite herself, she laughed, the sound raw but real. You always do that. Do what? Make it less terrifying. His smile softened. That's the point. As the sun bled orange into the trees, the pack gathered again at the fire. Lynn roasted vegetables skewered on sticks, Theo tried to juggle pine cones, and Mara told stories about wolves who came before them. Katrina listened, tired but strangely content. When her gaze drifted across the flames to Jax, he was already looking at her. And in that moment, with sparks drifting into the night sky, Katrina realized something terrifyingly simple. She wasn't just hungry anymore. She was falling. Chapter 9. Katrina tried to convince herself it was just adrenaline, or maybe a side effect of the moon. But the truth stalked her like a shadow. Every time Jax was near, her chest felt like it had grown a second heartbeat. She found herself watching him when she shouldn't, when Mara was lecturing on territory boundaries, when Theo was cracking jokes, when Lynn was showing her how to land silently in wolf form. Her gaze always strayed back to Jax. The way he moved with quiet authority. The easy smile he used to put her at ease. The fact that he never looked away first. That night, the pack spread out to patrol. Katrina got paired with Jax. Coincidence? She asked as they stepped into the forest. Maybe, he said, smirk tugging at his lips. Or maybe Mara thinks I'm the only one patient enough to deal with your episodes. She elbowed him. It's not an episode if the squirrel deserved it. The woods were alive with night sounds, crickets, owls, the whisper of leaves. Katrina's senses were sharper than ever. She could hear the rush of a rabbit heartbeat under the brush. Smell the tang of rain in the distance. It was intoxicating. Does it ever stop feeling like this? She asked quietly. Like what? Like the world's shouting secrets at you all the time. Jax tilted his head. No. You just learn which ones to listen to. They walked in silence a while, their steps sinking without effort. The moonlight dappled Jax's hair, turning it silver at the edges. Katrina swallowed hard. Why me? She blurted. He glanced at her. Why you what? Why are you always the one helping me? You could have handed me off to Mara. Or left me to figure it out. Something unreadable flickered in his eyes. Because I remember what it's like. First shift feels like the end of the world. Someone was there for me. I'm here for you. Her chest tightened. Is that all? They stopped. The night pressed in, expectant. Jax studied her, his gaze serious now. No, he admitted, voice low. It's not all. Before she could respond, a twig snapped in the darkness. Both of them froze, instincts sharpening like blades. Katrina's ears caught the shuffle of heavy steps, too heavy for a deer. Jax's hand brushed hers, subtle but firm. Stay behind me. Shapes moved between the trees. Two figures stepped into the moonlight. Wolves, bigger than any she'd seen yet, their eyes gleaming with something harsher than curiosity. Katrina's breath caught. Friends of yours? Jax's jaw tightened. Not even close. The strangers bared their teeth, low growls rumbling. The air thickened with threat. Jax shifted in a single fluid motion, fur and muscle erupting as he snarled back, ready. Katrina's wolf surged, hunger and fear tangling in her gut. Her bones ached with the need to follow him, to fight at his side. She didn't hesitate. The shift ripped through her, wild and fierce. Fur burst across her skin, claws dug into earth. She landed snarling beside Jax, every nerve on fire. For the first time, she wasn't scared of her wolf. She was ready to bare her teeth. Chapter 10. The intruders circled, hackles raised. Their scent hit Katrina's nose, bitter, sharp, like rust and wet ash. Everything about them screamed wrong. Jax prowled forward, lips peeled back. His growl wasn't just sound, it was command. Katrina felt it reverberate in her ribs. The bigger of the two wolves lunged. Jax met him midair, a blur of gray and gold. They crashed into the dirt with a crack of jaws and a flurry of claws. The second wolf darted toward Katrina. Instinct screamed louder than thought. She pivoted on her paws, muscles coiling, then lunged. Teeth sank into the wolf's flank. Hot blood filled her mouth. He yelped, bucked, tried to throw her off. Katrina held fast, surprised by her own strength. A surge of pride, wolf and woman, flooded her veins. I can do this. The stranger twisted, claws raking her shoulder. Pain seared. She snarled, snapping harder. Her wolf reveled in the fight, not with reckless hunger, but with sharp purpose. Jax slammed the bigger wolf into a tree with a bone-shaking thud. He turned, eyes burning, just in time to see Katrina holding her ground. For a flicker of a moment, pride flared in his gaze, then focus returned. Push him. Jax barked, voice half-human even through his muzzle. Katrina heaved with everything she had. The stranger stumbled back, crashed into his pack mate, and both wolves retreated with low, venomous growls. This isn't over, one of them snarled in a guttural voice before they melted into the trees. Silence dropped heavy. Katrina stood panting, fur bristling, blood matting her shoulder. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Jax shifted back, breathing hard, chest heaving. His skin glistened with sweat and dirt, but his eyes were bright, fierce. You okay? Katrina forced herself human again. The shift tore at her, but she landed on shaky legs, clutching her shoulder. I think so. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, hands steady as they gripped her arms. His gaze raked over the wound, his jaw tightening. They marked you. Her voice shook. Who were they? Rogues, he said grimly. Exiles. Wolves who reject pack law. They've been circling for weeks, but this, his voice dropped, this was a message. Katrina's stomach lurched. A message for me? No, his eyes darkened, gold flashing like fire. For us. His thumb brushed near the cut on her shoulder, gentler now. The heat of his touch made her shiver despite the pain. You fought well, he murmured, almost to himself. Better than most first-timers. Despite the throbbing in her shoulder, Katrina felt a rush of something fierce and wild. Pride, yes, but also connection. Fighting beside him hadn't felt like chaos. It had felt like belonging. And maybe something even more dangerous than that. Chapter 11. By the time they made it back to the cabin, Katrina's shoulder was throbbing like someone had shoved hot coals beneath her skin. Jax half-carried her through the door, his arm firm around her waist. The pack leapt to their feet. Mara's eyes narrowed instantly at the sight of blood. What happened? Rogues, Jax said, voice clipped. He lowered Katrina onto the couch with surprising gentleness. 2 of them. They wanted to make a point. Theo swore under his breath. Lynn fetched a bowl of steaming water without being asked. Mara knelt by Katrina's side, inspecting the wound. Deep, but not fatal. You'll heal fast. First fights always scar, though. Katrina winced as Mara dabbed the cut. First fights? As in, more? That's what it means to be one of us, Mara said, meeting her eyes. We protect the ridge. Sometimes that means bleeding for it. Katrina swallowed. Her wolf stirred restlessly, a low growl humming in her bones, not out of fear, but indignation. No one had the right to attack me. To attack us. Jax crouched beside her, his face tight with something she couldn't read. You did good, Katrina. Better than anyone could have expected. Good, she snapped, anger bubbling past the pain. I nearly got my throat ripped out. His voice softened. And you still stood your ground. That's what matters. Mara bound her shoulder with clean gauze. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we double training. Theo tried to lighten the mood. Hey, at least you didn't puke like I did after my first rogue fight. Katrina shot him a glare. Don't tempt me. Laughter rippled through the group, breaking the tension. But beneath it, a current of unease lingered. The fire popped in the hearth. Shadows stretched long against the walls. Later, after the others drifted outside to speak in low voices, Jax remained by her side. He pressed a cold compress into her hand. Keep this on it. Helps with the sting. Katrina studied him, the way his jaw was clenched tight, the way his eyes burned with an emotion she couldn't quite name. You're worried. Of course I'm worried. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Rogues don't usually bother with warnings. If they're testing us, it means something's coming. And me? She asked softly. Was I just collateral? His gaze snapped to hers. No. You're pack now. That makes you theirs as much as mine. And I don't let anyone touch what's mine. The words hit harder than she expected. Her wolf hummed, recognizing the claim. Her pulse leapt. Jax, her voice faltered, torn between fear and the heat crawling up her throat. He seemed to realize what he'd said, because he leaned back quickly, running a hand through his hair. Sorry. That came out, stronger than I meant. Katrina's lips twitched despite the sting in her shoulder. Wolfishly strong? That earned her a faint smile. Something like that. The silence that followed was charged, alive. Outside, the pack's voices faded into the night. Inside, Katrina sat with her shoulder bandaged, her heart racing, and the gnawing certainty that her hunger wasn't just for cheeseburgers anymore. It was for him. Chapter 12. The next morning, Katrina woke to the smell of frying meat. For a heart-stopping moment she thought she'd lost control again, but when she stumbled into the kitchen, hair wild, Jax's flannel still wrapped around her, she found Jax at the stove, spatula in hand. On the counter, buns, cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, and a mountain of bacon. You're making cheeseburgers for breakfast? She asked, half laughing, half incredulous. He glanced over his shoulder, grinning. You said you could still slay one. Figured I'd test the theory. Her stomach growled like thunder. You're evil. Wolfishly evil. He winked. By the time Mara wandered in with a cup of coffee, Katrina was already halfway through a burger, grease dripping down her wrist, eyes closed in bliss. Jax sat across from her, looking entirely too satisfied with himself. She's a quick learner, Mara observed dryly. Katrina waved a fry at her. This is important training fuel. But even as she joked, her thoughts kept circling back to the night before, the fight, the blood, the way Jax's voice had cut through the chaos and anchored her. And the way he'd said, I don't let anyone touch what's mine. Her wolf stirred at the memory, restless, possessive. After breakfast, training resumed, but the air was different. Everyone felt the rogue threat hanging over them. Mara pushed her harder, Lynn corrected her form with blunt efficiency, and Theo cracked fewer jokes than usual. When the sun dipped low, Jax pulled her aside. Come with me. He led her up the ridge, past the meadow, to a clearing she hadn't seen before. It overlooked the valley, the river winding silver below. The view was breathtaking. "This is where I come to think," he said. Katrina crossed her arms, suddenly wary. "Why bring me here?" "Because I need you to understand something." He turned, eyes catching the last light of day. Being pack means more than just running and fighting. It means belonging. It means family. And family is how we win against rogues. Her throat tightened. "Families, not something I'm good at." "Then we'll teach you," he said simply. The words hit her harder than claws. She blinked fast, turning away so he wouldn't see the tears burning her eyes. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," he admitted. "But it's worth it." Silence stretched between them, heavy but warm. Katrina risked a glance at him. His expression was open, earnest, and for once she didn't feel like prey or a rookie or a screw-up. She felt seen. Her wolf pushed forward, reckless and hungry. Before she could overthink it, Katrina stepped closer. "Jax," she whispered. He inhaled sharply, every muscle going taut. "Yeah?" And then she kissed him, no hesitation, no halfway brush. A full, desperate, claiming kiss. For a heartbeat he froze, as if shocked she'd been the one to leap. Then he growled low in his chest, grabbed her waist, and kissed her back with enough heat to set the pines trembling. The world narrowed to lips, hands, and the wild certainty that whatever hunger had always lived in her, this was the first time it was finally being fed. Chapter 13. The kiss burned through her like wildfire, pulling at every nerve until she was dizzy. Katrina clutched at Jax's shirt, half afraid he'd vanish if she let go. His lips were hot, insistent, but careful too, like he knew she was still balancing on the edge of a cliff. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Katrina pressed her forehead against his chest. His heartbeat thundered, steady and strong. Her wolf purred inside her, satisfied in a way Cheeseburgers never touched. "Okay," she whispered, "that was not a mistake." Jax chuckled low, his hand tracing slow circles on her back. "Glad we agree." But the weight of what they'd done hung between them. Pack bonds weren't casual, and she could feel the gravity of it settling in her bones. The kiss wasn't just heat, it was a spark of something deeper, something neither of them could laugh off. "I don't even know what this means," she admitted. "It means," Jax said, tipping her chin so she met his eyes, "we figure it out together. One step at a time." Her chest tightened. No one had ever said that to her before. She'd always been the one fumbling alone, covering cracks with sarcasm and fries. But before she could respond, a howl split the air. Low. Angry. Close. Jack stiffened. His golden eyes sharpened, scanning the tree-line. "Rogues." Katrina's pulse spiked. "Again?" "Yeah." His voice was grim now, all business. "They're testing the borders. Pushing closer every night." He took her hand, urgent but steady. "Stay with me." Her wolf surged, claws itching under her skin. This time, the fear didn't swallow her, it sharpened her. She wasn't just a girl caught in the chaos anymore. She was pack. She was fighter. And as the howls rose again, surrounding them like a storm, Katrina knew one thing for certain. The hunger inside her wasn't just for food, or even for Jax. It was for this fight. This family. This life. She bared her teeth in a grin. Let's show them who they're messing with. Chapter 14. The forest erupted with movement. Shapes flickered between the trees, for rogues this time, their eyes glinting like shards of broken glass in the moonlight. Jax shifted in an instant, fur bristling silver gray. His growl cut through the clearing, a warning and a promise. Katrina's bones sang with the same wild call. She let the shift take her, not fighting it, not fearing it. Claws hit earth. Her vision sharpened to a predator's clarity. The rogues lunged. Katrina met the first head-on, slamming her shoulder into his ribs with enough force to topple him. He snapped at her throat, but she twisted, jaws clamping down on his ear until he yelped and scrambled back. Another rogue came from her flank, but Jax intercepted, a blur of gray muscle and gold eyes. He hit like a storm, sending the wolf sprawling into the brush. The fight was chaos, snarls, claws, the taste of blood hot in her mouth, but Katrina wasn't flailing this time. Every movement was instinct woven with purpose. She remembered Mara's lessons, aim for leverage, not just teeth. She remembered Lynn's calm, conserve energy, wait for the opening. She remembered Jax's steady voice, guide your body, don't fight it. When a rogue leapt for her, she ducked low, spun, and used his momentum to slam him into the ground. Her jaws closed on his scruff, pinning him. A fierce, primal satisfaction roared through her. The rogues faltered, outnumbered, outmatched. One let out a sharp bark, a signal. Then, retreat. They melted back into the trees, shadows swallowed by deeper shadows, their snarls echoing as they vanished. The clearing went quiet except for panting breaths. Katrina stood trembling, fur streaked with blood and dirt. Her wolf surged with triumph, chest heaving with the knowledge, we fought, we survived, we won. Jax padded to her side, shifting back in a ripple of skin and light. He was cut across the cheek, blood drying along his jaw, but his smile was feral and proud. You were incredible, he said, voice raw from growling. Katrina shifted back, landing in the dirt beside him, hair tangled, chest heaving. I didn't die, she gasped. You didn't just not die, he said firmly. You held your own. You fought like pack. The words hit deeper than claws. She felt them in her bones, in her scars, in the part of her that had always been starving for belonging. And then, before she could second-guess it, Katrina laughed, loud and wild and full of relief. I was super pissed, she panted, but I could also slay a cheeseburger right now. Jax barked a laugh, throwing his head back, and for one ridiculous, perfect moment the fear and blood faded. There was just the two of them, alive and laughing in the wreckage. The hunger wasn't gone, it never would be. But for the first time, Katrina understood it wasn't something to fear. It was the fire that made her fight. The heat that made her live. And maybe, just maybe, the force that would bind her to him. Chapter 15. By the time they limped back to the cabin, the others were waiting. Mara's expression sharpened at the sight of blood. Theo's knife froze mid-spin. Lynn set down the log she'd been splitting with a soft thud. Rogues again, Jax reported grimly. For this time. Mara swore under her breath. They're escalating. They're also cowards, Katrina said before she could stop herself, still buzzing with leftover adrenaline. They ran when we fought back. All eyes turned to her. For a second she wondered if she'd overstepped, newbie wolf mouthing off, but Mara's lips curved into something almost like approval. Good, the beta said. You're learning what matters. Rogues thrive on fear. Deny them that, and you take away half their teeth. Theo clapped his hands once. And the other half you knock out the old-fashioned way. Laughter rippled around the fire pit, easing the tension, but Jax's gaze stayed fixed on Katrina. Pride radiated off him, bright and steady, and it made her stomach flip harder than any fight. Later, when the others drifted inside, Katrina lingered under the stars, the night cool against her sweat-streaked skin. Jax found her leaning against the porch railing, his face shadowed but his eyes still molten gold in the moonlight. You were fearless out there, he said. I was terrified. Fearless doesn't mean you're not scared, he countered. It means you do it anyway. She stared at him, something raw and aching clawing up her throat. You keep saying I'm part of this. Part of you. But what if I screw it up? What if I can't hold it together? He stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat radiating from him. Then I'll be there to catch you. Every damn time. The promise in his voice settled deeper than her scars, deeper than her hunger. Katrina's wolf stirred, recognizing the truth in it, the claim. Her breath caught. Jax. But words weren't enough. Not for this. So she kissed him again, fierce this time, claiming him as much as he'd claimed her. His hands slid to her waist, pulling her flush against him, and the world narrowed to the thunder of blood and the taste of fire between them. When they finally broke apart, gasping, Katrina pressed her forehead to his. "You know this is insane, right?" "Yeah," he said, lips brushing hers. "But it's ours." For the first time, Katrina didn't feel like she was drowning in hunger or anger. She felt like she was standing in the middle of something wild and terrifying, and exactly where she was meant to be. Chapter 16. The next days blurred into something fierce and strange, equal parts training, bonding, and watching the tree lean for rogue movement. The pack tightened around Katrina like ribs protecting a heart. She ran with them at dusk, learned to read their signals mid-stride, even managed to spar with Mara without getting pinned in the first 10 seconds. But when night came, and the fire dimmed, and the others drifted off to sleep, she and Jax found themselves circling each other. Sometimes with words, sometimes with silence, always with that pull neither of them could ignore. One evening, after a long patrol, they found themselves alone by the river. Moonlight fractured across the water. Jax crouched to skim a stone, sending ripples chasing the current. Katrina sat beside him, hugging her knees, trying to look casual despite the heat pooling low in her chest. "You're getting faster," he said without looking at her. Theo almost ate dirt trying to keep up. She smirked. "Good. He deserves it for laughing every time I trip." Jax chuckled. "Fair." Then his voice dropped, serious. "But really, when I first saw you, I didn't think you'd catch on this quick." Katrina arched a brow. "Thanks. I don't mean it as an insult," he said quickly. "It's just, most people break before they bend. You bend. Then you come back stronger." Her chest tightened. No one had ever said anything like that to her. She glanced at him, the way the moonlight painted silver across his jaw, the scar near his temple, the quiet steadiness in his eyes. Before she could second-guess it, she leaned closer. "You make it sound like I was meant for this." His gaze locked on hers. "Maybe you were." The air between them thickened, heavy with unspoken things. Katrina's wolf prowled just beneath her skin, urging, demanding. Jax's scent, pine and rain and heat, wrapped around her like a net. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "Katrina." Her breath hitched. "Yeah? Tell me to stop," he whispered, "and I will." But she didn't want him to stop. Not now. Not ever. Instead, she closed the gap, kissing him hard enough to make the river forget to move. He kissed back just as fiercely, hands gripping her waist, pulling her closer like he'd been waiting for this moment as long as she had. The kiss broke only when the distant howl of a rogue split the night. Sharp. Warning. Katrina pulled back, panting. "They're close." Jax's eyes burned, torn between desire and duty. Closer than ever. She swallowed, heart pounding. "Then let them come." Her wolf agreed, snarling with hunger, not for food this time, but for the fight, the pack, and the man at her side. Chapter 17. The pack assembled within minutes, answering the rogue howl with their own chorus, defiant, unified, loud enough to rattle the trees. Katrina's chest vibrated with the sound, her voice weaving through theirs. For the first time, she wasn't just mimicking. She was part of it. Mara gave crisp orders. "Theo, Lynn, west flank. Jax, Katrina, with me." We pushed them back before they sniffed the cabin. Jax shot Katrina a quick look, and something passed between them, a silent vow. They shifted side by side, fur rippling, bones snapping into form. The change no longer felt like torture to her. It was fire, yes, but fire she could ride. The rogues came in harder this time. 6 of them, their stench fouling the air. Snarls ripped through the clearing as shadows turned into bodies, claws flashing under moonlight. Katrina didn't hesitate. She lunged at the first wolf that crossed the line, slamming him into the ground with her momentum. Teeth snapped at her throat, but she twisted, remembering Mara's drills, and drove her claws into his shoulder. He yelped and bolted back into the brush. Jax barreled past her, colliding with two rogues at once. His power was terrifying, a storm of gray fur and muscle, but Katrina could see the strategy behind it. He fought with control, not frenzy. She matched his rhythm, moving where he wasn't, filling the gaps. It felt like a dance. A bloody, feral waltz under the moon. One rogue broke past the line, lunging for Mara. Katrina saw it happen in a flash and didn't think. She moved. Her body collided with his mid-air, jaws snapping around his hind leg. He howled, twisting, and she clamped down harder until the bone cracked. The taste of blood filled her mouth, but instead of nausea, she felt a surge of power. This is what I was made for. The rogues faltered again. Their leader, a scarred wolf with one blind eye, snarled something guttural, then barked a retreat. They melted back into the shadows, tails low, leaving the clearing littered with blood and claw marks. Silence fell. The pack stood panting, battered but unbroken. Katrina shifted back first, collapsing to her knees in the dirt. Her chest heaved, her hair clung to her face, and her arms shook from adrenaline. Jax shifted a moment later, equally bruised and bloodied. He dropped beside her, gripping her shoulder. "You okay?" She laughed breathlessly, the sound wild, almost unhinged. "I just broke a wolf's leg with my mouth. Am I okay?" "No." "Am I alive?" "Hell yes." Mara strode over, eyes sharp but approving. "You did more than survive, Katrina. You fought like pack." The word struck deeper than claws. She felt her throat tighten, tears pricking her eyes, though she blamed it on sweat. Jax squeezed her hand once, quiet and sure. And in that moment, despite the blood and bruises, Katrina realized she didn't just belong, she wanted to. The hunger inside her had changed shape. It wasn't just about cheeseburgers, or even the thrill of the fight. It was for this. For them. For him. And she wasn't about to let any rogue take it away. Chapter 18. The pack limped back to the cabin together, a ragged but victorious procession. Lynn's arm was wrapped in strips of her own shirt, Theo had a claw mark across his chest, and Mara's jaw was tight with pain though she didn't complain. Katrina stumbled between them, her body bruised, her wolf buzzing with leftover rage and triumph. Inside, the cabin smelled of antiseptic and wood smoke. Lynn started a pot of water while Theo rummaged for bandages. Mara barked orders, efficient even while bleeding. Katrina sank onto the couch, adrenaline ebbing into exhaustion. Jax dropped beside her, his arm brushing hers, grounding her like always. He had a cut running down his forearm, blood dried into streaks, but he didn't seem to notice. His eyes were fixed on her. "You didn't just hold your ground," he said quietly, meant only for her. "You turned the fight. If you hadn't taken that one down, Mara would have been," he broke off, jaw clenching. Katrina blinked at him, raw and shaky. "I didn't think. I just moved." "That's instinct," Jax said. "That's pack." The words lodged deep, warming a place inside her she didn't know was cold. She looked at him, at the scar cutting across his cheek, at the steadiness in his gaze. "Why do you always do that?" "Do what?" "Look at me like I'm more than I am." He leaned closer, his voice low, his scent curling around her like pine smoke. "Because you are." Her breath caught. Her wolf pressed against her ribs, restless, wanting more. The moment snapped when Mara cleared her throat. "If you two are done making googly eyes, we need to talk strategy." Katrina flushed, pulling back. Jax just smirked, unbothered. Around the fire pit, Mara spread a map of the ridge. "They're not just testing us anymore," she said. "They're trying to break through. If they think Katrina is the weak link." "She's not," Jax cut in sharply. Mara arched a brow. I know she's not. But they think she is. Which means they'll come harder. And soon. Katrina swallowed. So what do we do? Mara's gaze pinned her. We make sure you're ready. Because the next time they come, you won't just be fighting for yourself. You'll be fighting for all of us. The fire popped, sending sparks into the air. Katrina felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders, and surprisingly, it didn't crush her. It lit something inside her. Her hunger roared awake, sharp and demanding. Not for food this time. Not even for Jack's, though his warmth beside her made her wolf ache. She was hungry for the fight. Hungry to prove she belonged. Hungry to protect the family she'd stumbled into under a cursed, glorious moon. Chapter 19. Training shifted from hard to brutal. Mara pushed Katrina until her muscles screamed. Lynn drilled her on balance, making her hold wolf form until her paws trembled. Theo sparred with her daily, gleefully forcing her to adapt to new tricks. You're not just learning to fight, Mara reminded her, circling like a hawk. You're learning to lead yourself. If the rogues smell hesitation, they'll get you with it. Katrina's wolf snarled inside her, refusing to back down. For every bruise, every stumble, she got up again. She bled, but she learned. At night, she and Jax walked the perimeter together. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they didn't. The silence between them wasn't empty, it was charged, alive, filled with the memory of kisses and the promise of more. One night, as they sat by the ridge, Jax finally broke the quiet. You've changed. Katrina raised a brow. Into a wolf? Yeah, thanks for noticing. He smirked. Not just that. You carry yourself different. Stronger. Like you finally believe it. Her chest tightened. Maybe I do. She glanced at him. Because of you. His expression flickered, surprise, then something warmer. He reached for her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. No. Because of you. I just reminded you what was already there. Her wolf hummed at the contact, a low, satisfied purr. She wanted to lean in, to taste him again, but the night shattered with a long, ragged howl. Closer than ever. Jack stiffened, jaw clenched. They're moving. The pack gathered fast, each wolf bristling with tension. Mara's face was grim as she pointed to the western ridge. They'll come in waves. They think we're weak. They think she, her eyes flicked to Katrina, is untrained. Katrina's blood heated, anger burning away fear. Then let's prove them wrong. The others shifted, fur exploding in the moonlight. Katrina followed, her wolf surging forward, bones snapping with a rush of heat. She landed on 4 paws, claws digging into dirt. Jax brushed against her flank, his golden eyes meeting hers. Together. The rogues broke from the trees, more than before. 7. Maybe 8. Snarls split the night. Katrina's wolf bared its teeth. Her hunger sharpened to a blade. Not for food. Not even for belonging. For victory. And when the first rogue lunged, she met him head-on, her growl ripping through the clearing like thunder. Chapter 20. The clearing erupted into chaos. Fur and teeth and blood blurred into a single frenzy of movement. Katrina lunged, jaws snapping around a rogue's foreleg. Bone cracked. He yelped and bolted, leaving a spray of crimson on the dirt. Another wolf came at her from behind, but she spun, instinct faster than thought. Her claws slashed across his muzzle, sending him stumbling back. Her wolf howled, fierce and wild, no longer prey, no longer cornered, but predator. Jax crashed into the largest rogue, their bodies colliding with enough force to shake the earth. His growl reverberated through her bones, and she moved without hesitation to cover his flank. 2 wolves circled, trying to isolate him. Katrina lunged at the first, tearing into his side, her fury fueled by something deeper than survival. He is mine to fight beside. You will not take him. Mara's howl cut through the din, rallying them. Theo slashed his way through two rogues at once. Lynn fought with terrifying precision, her movements clean and brutal. The pack moved like one body, one heartbeat. Katrina lost track of time. There was only the rhythm of attack and counterattack, only the roar of her wolf and the steady pulse of Jax at her side. Together, they drove the rogues back, step by bloody step. At last, the scarred leader with the blind eye appeared, snarling from the tree-line. His single golden eye locked on Katrina. She froze, her wolf bristling. Something in his gaze promised this wasn't over. He barked once, sharp, commanding. The rogues disengaged, melting into the darkness like smoke. The clearing fell silent but for ragged breaths and the stench of blood. Katrina shifted back, collapsing to her knees, chest heaving. Sweat plastered her hair to her face. Her arms shook from adrenaline, but she was alive. Alive and still humming with the fire of the fight. Jax shifted beside her, equally battered, cut streaking his arms and chest. He gripped her shoulder, steadying her. You didn't just hold your own, he said, voice rough with pride. You fought like one of us. Like pack. Her throat tightened. Exhaustion warred with triumph. I feel like I could drop dead, she panted. Right after I eat 10 cheeseburgers. Jax barked a laugh, head tipping back to the stars. The sound sent warmth spilling through her, even as her body trembled. Mara approached, her own clothes streaked with blood but her eyes sharp and approving. You've earned your place tonight, Katrina. Don't ever doubt it again. The words sank deeper than the wounds, deeper than the scars. Katrina wasn't just surviving anymore. She was becoming. And as Jax's hand lingered on her arm, steady and unyielding, she knew the hunger inside her had finally found its shape. It wasn't only for food, or for the fight. It was for this life. For this pack. For him. Chapter 21, Ending. The cabin glowed warm against the dark as the pack stumbled back together, bloodied but unbroken. Inside, Mara stitched Theo's side while Lynn brewed something herbal and bitter. Katrina sat on the couch, bandaged, bruised, but steady. Jax hovered near her, pacing like a restless storm until she finally tugged his hand, pulling him down beside her. Sit, she ordered, voice hoarse but firm. He did, though his gaze stayed sharp, scanning every shadow. They'll be back. Yeah, she said softly. But so will we. That got his attention. He turned, golden eyes locking on hers. There was pride in them, and something deeper, something that had been simmering since the diner, since the first howl. You're not the same woman who walked into Lou's that night, he said. Katrina snorted. No, she'd have cried into her milkshake and gone home. And now? She looked around, the pack, scarred and tired but together. Mara's steady leadership, Lynn's quiet strength, Theo's smirk even through pain. And Jax, who had walked her through the fire and never once let go of her hand. Now, she said, a smile tugging at her lips, I'm Cheeseburger Queen. And a wolf. And pack. Jax laughed, low and warm, before leaning closer. You're mine, too. Her wolf purred at the words, deep and satisfied. She didn't argue. Instead, she kissed him, slow this time, steady, sealing not just heat but a promise. When they broke apart, the others pretended not to notice, though Theo muttered, finally, around his bandage. The fire crackled, sparks drifting up toward the rafters. The night outside still held rogues and threats and uncertainty, but Katrina wasn't afraid. She was hungry, yes, but hungry to fight, to live, to belong. And with Jax beside her, with the pack at her back, she knew she'd never face that hunger alone again. Katrina leaned against him, exhaustion pulling her down, and whispered, still want that cheeseburger. Jax grinned, pressing a kiss to her temple. Tomorrow. Tonight you rest, Queen. Her eyes closed, a smile still on her lips. For once, the hunger inside her was full. And when the moonlight spilled across the cabin floor, it didn't feel like a curse anymore. It felt like home. The end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more like this.